You will not be punished for your suffering. You will be punished by your suffering unless you learn to transform it. There comes a moment in every human life when we pause and ask, why does life hurt so much? Why do we wake with a sense of yearning? Why do we walk through our days with a hunger that never fully disappears? To answer this, we must look deeply into the very nature of life, and more importantly, into the nature of ourselves. In the 19th century, the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer identified something powerful and universal: the will to live, a blind, restless force that drives not only humans but all living beings. It is this will, unconscious and insatiable, that sits at the root of our dissatisfaction. It is this will that whispers to us, more, 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 more wealth, more pleasure, more recognition, more comfort, and when we achieve it, the whisper grows louder still. This is why life feels like an endless pursuit. Like a man lost in a desert who drinks salty water, the more we try to quench the thirst of the will, the thirstier we become. The root of suffering, creation. The world teaches us that happiness is the presence of pleasure. But Schopenhauer reminds us, true happiness is the absence of pain. Let that truth sink in. Happiness is not found in pleasures that come and go, nor in the grand dreams we chase. Rather, it exists in the quiet, in the absence, in the space where suffering no longer resides. Pain is positive, it's real, it demands attention. But pleasure is fleeting. It is simply the brief silence that follows pain, and it never lasts. This truth was known not only to Schopenhauer, but also to the Buddha. Both men looked directly into the eyes of suffering, not to wallow in darkness, but to understand how to step beyond it. So must we. Why life disappoints us? Most people live with an unspoken expectation that life is supposed to be joyful, fulfilling, comfortable. From our youth, this belief is embedded in us through stories, movies, and culture. But life doesn't promise us anything. Schopenhauer warned that these illusions set us up for misery. We suffer not just because of pain, but because we expected something else, something better. And when life doesn't meet these expectations, we despair. This is why one of Schopenhauer's most powerful insights is this: the safest way of not being very miserable is not to expect to be very happy. This is not cynicism, this is freedom. Let go of your fantasies. Release your grip on what should be, and you will find yourself free to experience what is. The art of minimizing pain. Schopenhauer did not believe that we could eliminate suffering entirely unless we walked the path of complete asceticism, the total denial of the will. That path is reserved for the rarest of souls, monks, sages, and those who fully renounce worldly existence. For the rest of us, the ones who live in society, who have families, who work and struggle, there is another way. A way not to eliminate suffering entirely, but to reduce it, to minimize the unnecessary pain, to live wisely. And so Schopenhauer gave us practical rules, guidelines for how to live with less pain, more clarity, and deeper inner peace. Rule 1. Know yourself. The first cause of suffering is not life itself, but our ignorance of who we are. We chase dreams that do not belong to us. We envy people who live lives that are not meant for us. We pursue paths that contradict our nature. Schopenhauer reminds us, know yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your temperament, your limits. Once you know yourself, you stop pretending. You stop striving to be what you're not. And in this acceptance, you find peace. True mastery does not come from force. It comes from alignment. Rule 2. Value health over riches. Wealth can be stolen. Fame fades. Recognition is shallow. But health, both physical and mental, is the foundation of inner peace. Schopenhauer declared, "The healthy beggar is happier than the sick king." Do not trade your sleep, your sanity, or your vitality for status. It is not a worthy exchange. Exercise. Breathe. Eat simply. Rest deeply. A calm mind in a healthy body is worth more than 1,000 fortunes. Rule 3. Seek natural pleasures. Avoid artificial ones. There are pleasures that nourish, and there are pleasures that poison. Natural pleasures, like food when you're hungry, water when you're thirsty, or stillness after chaos, are simple and fulfilling. Artificial pleasures, like chasing fame, buying things you don't need, or impressing strangers, demand more than they give. They raise your expectations and then punish you when they disappear. Learn to recognize the difference. Pursue what satisfies, not what sparkles. Rule 4. Avoid unnecessary suffering. There is pain that is inevitable, like aging, illness, and loss. But there is pain that is avoidable, like comparison, envy, or self-deception. Why suffer needlessly? Much of your suffering arises not from events, but from your resistance to them. You suffer because you believe things should be different. But once you surrender to what is, suffering softens. Acceptance is not weakness, it is strength. The strength to be with reality. Rule 5. Shift your perspective. We do not see the world as it is. We see it through the lens of our mind. Schopenhauer's metaphysics teaches that reality is shaped by our perception. This means that we are not the passive victims of external events. We are active participants in how we experience them. Change your perspective and your suffering changes. Learn to view challenges as lessons. See loss as a teacher. Let pain become a sculptor that shapes your soul. In every hardship, there is a seed of wisdom, if you are willing to look. Rule 6. Live simply. The more you own, the more you have to protect. The more you chase, the more restless you become. Simplicity is not poverty, it is clarity. It is a deliberate choice to focus on what matters. When you reduce your desires, you reduce your suffering. When you stop reaching, you begin resting. The Tao Te Ching says, "He who knows when enough is enough will always have enough." This is ancient wisdom, but it is also the wisdom of Schopenhauer. Rule 7. Choose solitude wisely. Solitude is not loneliness, it is the sacred space where we meet ourselves. Schopenhauer believed that solitude is a blessing for those who are rich in thought. It gives us the room to reflect, to study, to grow. But solitude also reveals our inner restlessness. If you cannot sit quietly with yourself, ask, why? What are you running from? What have you buried? In solitude, pain rises, but so does healing. The beauty of aging. As we grow older, we stop believing in the myth of constant happiness. We stop reaching for the sky, and instead, we plant our feet on solid ground. Schopenhauer saw aging not as decline, but as refinement. With age, we begin to understand that reducing pain, not maximizing pleasure, is the key to a meaningful life. We no longer seek fireworks. We seek the calm warmth of the fire. We no longer want applause. We want peace. Eudaimonia, a life worth living. For Schopenhauer, true happiness is not ecstasy, is contentment. It is a life that, when reflected upon, is clearly preferable to non-existence. This is what the Greeks called Eudaimonia. Not pleasure, but flourishing. You flourish not when you get everything, but when you stop needing everything. You flourish when you feel alive even in stillness, when your joy is quiet, when your heart is steady. The power of stillness. Dear listener, remember this. The world may be chaotic, but you can be still. Life may offer pain, but you can choose peace. The will to live may roar, but you can silence it with awareness. You were not born to suffer endlessly, but you were also not born to chase illusions. You were born to learn, to see clearly, and to live wisely. In every breath, you have the chance to reduce suffering, not by force, not by conquest, but by understanding, by surrender, and by the simple decision to value peace over pleasure. The wisest among us are not those who chase happiness, but those who quietly avoid misery. May your path be light, your mind be clear, and your heart be free from the burden of unnecessary suffering. Shi Heng Yi.